Yesterday we celebrated Workers' Day, and thus all businesses that employ workers, whether in a professional occupation or not, have the responsibility to ensure that the workplace is safe for all workers as well as for all external stakeholders who may visit the environment. Now, an annual World Day for Safety and Health at the workplace was held on the 28th of April. Businesses worldwide encourage improving overall employee health and safety. Dr. Dominique Stott is executive of the Medical Standard and Services at PPS. She joins us this morning to talk more on this issue. So a very good morning to you, Dr. Stott, and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Now, this year they celebrated the day under workplace stress, a collective challenge. And you and I were having a conversation just off air now that chronic stress is very much dangerous, especially in the workplace.
Definitely. A little bit of stress is not a bad thing and definitely not uncommon in the workplace. Stress in the short term is possibly a good thing because a little bit of adrenaline to meet deadlines on a daily basis can push people to work a little bit harder. But it's what we're referring to here by workplace stress, which is the bad thing, is when people are forced to meet deadlines chronically, to perform under great pressure, working under circumstances which lead eventually to chronic psychiatric problems, leading to psychiatric issues like depression and anxiety, and that eventually leads to greater problems for the employer. Because under circumstances like that, where you get these chronic issues, it leads to underproduction by the employees. And that underproduction leads to the eventual turnaround of staff. It leads to staff leaving. It leads to chronic absenteeism. It leads to presenteeism, where staff are there but not performing. So there are lots of underlying problems that the employer might face if they don't address the kind of issues that lead to chronic stress in the workplace.
So you're basically saying that it is okay for me as an employee to, have a little bit of stress about my work, what we have for tomorrow, but it's not right if my employer exerts an amount of pressure on what I am supposed to do.
On a daily basis, there should be a measure of stress, but it shouldn't be excessive on a daily basis, and it shouldn't be unreasonable. And it should be up to the employer or the managers in a cascade of a hierarchy in an employer to measure what is reasonable and to listen to the employees when they're saying, I can't do things, I can't achieve these deadlines, I can't deal with these difficult clients. The employer should be prepared to listen and watch what's going on with sick leave, because sick leave is very often a measure of what's going on with your staff. Because when sick leave spikes, or when the reasons for sick leave is monitored, that's a good indicator of what's going on with your staff. When staff start taking sick leave for things like work stress, for example, or depression or work-related anxiety, it should be an opportunity for the employer to step in and see what they can do about wellness counselling, referrals to professionals, psychiatrists and psychologists, to assist their employees in addressing the workplace stress so that these issues can be addressed before they become chronic rather than when it's too late.
Now, there's an article that I read, I think it was by the Human Resources Effectiveness, indicating that an amount of about 3 billion rands is lost every year due to workplace stress. And you also mentioned less productivity from the side of the employees.
That is very true. There is an amount lost because people just underperform when they are chronically stressed. They can't meet the deadlines that they're required to meet. There was an article that was published by the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, which said that depressed people in the workplace perform to about 20% of their normal productivity when they're depressed. So it does have an impact on their productivity.
And is it quite worrying here in South Africa?
Unfortunately, in South Africa, we have a 1 in 4 prevalence over the lifetime of incidence of psychiatric disorders, and 20 people a day commit suicide in South Africa. I would think that workplace stresses, chronic stress, have a role to play in those kind of psychiatric statistics. So I do think there is a role of workplace stress.
Now, you've also indicated, Dr. Stott, that employers would be able to see if they watch closely the absenteeism trend of their employees. But as an employee, how do I go about realizing that I'm suffering from chronic stress?
If somebody starts feeling that they are overwhelmed, if they start feeling completely out of their depth, if they are not taking their leave as they should because they feel if they take leave, work's just going to back up, if they feel that their colleagues at work are going to take it out on them when they get back to work because they've left all their work up to their colleagues while they're away, if they are increasingly irritable at home, if they feel the need to use alcohol when they get home to relax, these sorts of things should be an indicator to an employee that something...
So what should you do? You must go on leave.
They must take their leave.
A well-deserved one, I believe.
That is what leave is for. Take your leave.
Well, Dr. Stott, that's where we're going to leave it, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much indeed. There you have it. That's Dr. Dominique Stott. She is Executive of the Medical Standard and Services at PPS. Well,